Greetings, friends, fellow patriots, and fellow citizens, and welcome to this week's edition of the We the People Convention Weekly News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. I'm the host of this podcast. I'm also the president of the We the People Convention organization. And this podcast and everything we do in our organization, from our wonderful website at wethepeopleconvention.org, our texts and our emails that you can get by going to wethepeopleconvention.org and signing up, our social media efforts, and our support of other nonprofits, other patriotic groups that we support with your donations, are all provided by the generous donations of our donors. And if you can support us, even in the smallest way, $5 a month is wonderful. That would be much appreciated. Just go to wethepeopleconvention.org and give what you can. And for those who've been giving for a very long time, thank you, thank you, thank you. We greatly appreciate it. We also appreciate all of you who are joining us to watch this podcast. We think that from what you tell us, that this podcast serves a very valuable purpose in your life. In a world where news is mostly propaganda and it's hard to get the truth, and then there's so much happening, it's almost impossible to keep track of it. I know it is for us at wethepeopleconvention.org, and that's what we do. If you have a real job, if you have a real life, you can't be following all that's going on. But much of it affects your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And so many of you, most of you who write to us say, I watch your podcast because I can watch one show each week and know all the things that are going on that I should know about and that affect me. And I love the fact that you give us an action plan. You ask us to do things to protect individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So for all of you who are new to this podcast, we're getting a lot of play on TikTok and Facebook, and now we're actually posting on Instagram, and on X and all that. All of you who are new to this podcast, that's what you can expect. You're going to get a really, a powerful weekly news recap with opinion about what it means to you and to us and to our nation and to the world. And that's what our focus is. And it's been very effective for the 16 years we've been doing this. And we think you will, enjoy the podcast, and we thank you for joining us. So let's get on with it, because there's much going on. We are living just in historic times, and some would say biblical times. And we are in the middle of consecutive major changes in the way the world operates. We are seeing a restoration of the U.S. Constitution and the rule of law. We are seeing a implementation of the values that made America, the most successful nation in the history of the world. Primarily the idea that we're a merit-based society, that through competition, which a lot of people don't like, but it's really critical to get humans, to get mankind to strive to be the best we can be. By being a merit-based society, we achieved unbelievable things. And then they said, oh, merit is bad, and we're going to give trophies to everybody and not just the winners, and there's going to be no valedictorians. And they destroyed the engine that drove the United States, and President Trump is restoring that, is bringing it back in the military, in our schools, in society, in business, in our economy. And so, that's happening. And then simultaneously, Donald Trump is remaking what was called the New World Order, which was basically this idea that America's not sovereign, that it's not good to be nationalistic. We're all citizens in the world, and we should all work together. Yeah, that's been a disaster for everyone that's been involved with that. And now he said, no, America first. And that's not a bad thing, because what does it do? It's like merit. It makes you compete. And so that we get better out of everybody. We get, the Europeans off their asses and start doing things again. We get, the rest of the world engaged. And this is traumatic. It's transactional. It's making the world uncomfortable. And while the naysayers and the media and the people who hate Trump and the people who hate you and me because they don't want a strong middle class, they don't want power to the people, they want state control of your life. We want individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Well, those people were complaining, oh, the tariffs are going to cause inflation and they're going to crush the economy and yada, yada, yada. The world's changing. You are witness to that, and you've got to be a part of that. Because this is what we need to rebalance, to get ourselves back on track, to not just make America great again, but to help the rest of the world give up on this failed ideology that the communist Chinese have been pushing and get back to Western civ and what made the West, so powerful. And so it begins, and it's ugly because there's a lot of messes to clean up, and the biggest mess to clean up is what happened in our country, where our democracy, quote unquote, our representative republic, that the elections were stolen, our government was corrupted, and they were destroying the very heart of America. And that ends. So it begins. Bondi approves grand jury to investigate Obama Clinton-led coup. And, we've been talking about this for many years. But now that we have, people in positions, we have, the presidency, the Senate, the Congress, we've got the Supreme Court, we've got enough judges to get through the lawfare, and now we've got to act. And so Attorney General Pam Bondi directed her staff Monday to act on the criminal referral from Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard related to the alleged conspiracy to tie President Donald Trump to Russia, and the Department of Justice is now opening a grand jury investigation in the matter, Fox News Digital has learned. Bondi personally ordered an unnamed federal prosecutor to initiate legal proceedings, and the prosecutor is expected to present department evidence to a grand jury, which will allow the department to secure a potential indictment, according to a letter from Bondi reviewed by Fox News Digital and sources familiar with the investigation. And in that process, the question is, where will the grand jury be convened? And we all know that Washington, D.C. is corrupt to the core. These judges are not judges. They're not, blind, justice being blind. They're activists. They're partisans. They're ideologues. And so it looks like this is going to be convened in Florida because of the Mar-a-Lago raid. We're hoping for that because we've got to get to a court that represents all of America, not just the Democrats, socialists, communists left. And that's the challenge. So lots is at play. But this grand jury is going to be convened, but there's more and more evidence coming out. We had the Tulsi Gabbard information, but then this week they came out with the Durham Annex information, which had even more damning evidence that Obama not only knew that Russia had not been involved with Trump, but he ordered the intel agencies to help the Clinton campaign to lie about it. And then this bombshell comes out, and Just the News, John Solomon is doing incredible work. If you're not going to justthenews.com every day and seeing what John Solomon is doing, you're missing a lot. He broke this story, Smoking Gun. Obama endorsed bogus CIA claims on Trump and Putin before analysis was even finished. So this is where the internet plays such a key role, because timing is everything. And while the media that was complicit in the coup, the takeover of our country, MSNBC, CBS, NBC, ABC, well, none of them will cover this, and they're claiming there's no evidence at all except that Gabbard and the FBI and the DOJ and the CIA have released actual documents, actual emails, actual things that prove that they were lying. They keep trying to tell you there's nothing to see here. Well, then this story comes out. Before the intelligence community assessment that he ordered was even finished, Obama made public comments endorsing leaks claiming that the CIA's conclusion was that Putin had meddled in the 2016 election to hurt Clinton and help Trump. The record, let's see, President Barack Obama made public statements as early as mid-December 2016, indicating that he was endorsing a predetermined CIA view about Vladimir Putin allegedly wanting Trump to win and Hillary Clinton to lose. The intelligence community assessment had not even been completed and was still being debated and drafted. The record, bolstered by newly declassified documents, shows that Obama was a central figure at key points throughout the Russiagate saga. Obama directed the creation of a new CIA on Russia meddling only after Trump was victorious. So they tried to tie Trump to Russia to win the election for Clinton. But then when they were surprised that Trump won, Obama panicked and he went into overdrive and said, now we're going to have to create this lie. He literally ordered Brennan to do it, to put together a false report. Let's see. Obama endorsed an anonymously leaked CIA estimate on Russia meddling in December 2016 during an interview with NPR, roughly 2 weeks before the ICI was finalized in late December. Obama said during an interview that no one should be surprised by the CIA assessment that this was done purposely to improve Trump's chances, a claim he was making following anonymous leaks to the media about the CIA's alleged position, preempting the completion of the formal ICA later that month. So he's on National Public Radio telling the American public, as the sitting president, remember he's still president, Trump doesn't come in until January, and he's telling the public, don't be surprised if you see that Trump was connected to Putin. Except at that point, there was not only no evidence of that, there was evidence that that was not true. And Tulsi Gabbard has provided that evidence, and that's what this grand jury is going to see. Evidence. Obama was complicit, totally, 100%. And the American people, thanks to you, okay, thanks to what we do on this podcast, thanks to social media and your controlling the narrative, the majority of voters believe Obama's deep state committed crimes in Russiagate. In the wake of revelations about so-called Russiagate scandal, more than 2/3 of voters agree with Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard that there must be accountability for any crimes committed. The latest Rasmussen reports national telephone and online survey finds that 54% of likely U.S. voters believe it's likely that members of President Barack Obama's national security team committed crimes when they manipulated and manufactured intelligence to promote a false narrative about Russia and Donald Trump. Okay? So we're winning the narrative battle because they did commit crimes. Now we have a grand jury, but this is going to be a long process. You and I have to be excited that it's finally beginning. But as I said last week, it's not just Hillary Clinton's emails before the 2015-16 election, which is what the Russia's hoax to steal dossier was to distract from. She committed crimes. She had classified data on a personal server in her bathroom of her house that every foreign country who paid the Clinton Foundation could get access to our national secrets. And Obama knew it and allowed it. So that's just the beginning. That's not even the election. That's just covering up her crime. Then it's trying to steal the election with a lie. Then it's having the government, the president on down, with all the leaders of the intelligence actively colluding to stop someone from winning the presidency. And then after they won, actively conducting a coup. And then going into the 2020 election where they rigged the vote. They unleashed the COVID bioweapon. They changed all the rules with the the mail-in ballots and all the rules about how long you can count and how you can vote. And they stole the 2020 election. Then they created the Fedsurrection on January 6th to try to then lock up all of us who supported Trump and who knew they were lying about the 2016 election, about Russia, about Trump. And then they continued to commit lawfare on Donald Trump with phony charges, and we're going to talk more about that in a second, all the way to 2024 with Kamala Harris and what they were doing all through 2024's election. So this is just the beginning. Be patient. But what you have to be excited about is it's actually started. There's real evidence that was hidden from us that is now able to be given to a grand jury to convict these people. And like I said to you before, this isn't 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 10, 20. This is hundreds of people. Hundreds of people were involved with this throughout government and in the Democratic Party and in states. So much more to come. So just hang in there. But then this blockbuster from Project Veritas that basically is implicating Attorney General Barr, Bill Barr, who Donald Trump appointed Attorney General, was behind all of this, not all, much of the attacks on Trump, much of the lawfare. Project Veritas on Thursday released part 2 of its whistleblower investigation into former U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr. On Tuesday, Project Veritas released a bombshell story from a whistleblower alleging former U.S. AG Barr, along with media figure Armstrong Williams, is running an illegal immigration visa fraud scheme for elites and billionaires. Patricia Lease, whistleblower from former Brazilian journalist at Howard Strick Holdings, who is in hiding abroad, told Project Veritas that she was prosecuted after reporting Bill Barr and Armstrong Williams to the FBI. On Thursday, Project Veritas released a video explaining how Bill Barr plotted prosecutions of Trump to block his political comeback. I'm going to play you a clip from this, and then I'm going to link on our podcast page for you the rest of her video. But folks, wow, this is serious stuff. Listen up.
It's very easy to know why I am being prosecuted and no one else. It's being charged or prosecuted. It's very easy. I called the FBI to report Bill Barr and Armstrong Williams. I have notes of every single meeting. One meeting can be about visa for someone, or another meeting can be about January 6th or RICO case. I have a quote here that was like, Barr believes the FBI will go to Trump house soon. And one thing that I heard a lot is like how they go to prevent America to have Trump again. One thing that I learned very fast and very in the beginning is like Bill Barr is someone extremely important. And I remember the biggest conversation they had at that point, it is like, what kind of charge that we can bring against Trump? And that's when Bill Barr, and I will never forget that, Bill Barr was like, we should bring RICO because it's a very difficult type of charge to defend.
Wow. Wow. And it goes on. And again, this woman has notes, audio recordings, video recordings. Bill Barr did this. She's got the evidence. I'm sure this is all going to end up with the grand jury. I'm sure Bill Barr is going to be charged with crimes because he basically worked with Fannie Willis and Letitia James and all these people and Jack Smith and all of them to basically set up all of Trump's people. They had a hit list of Navarro and Bannon and all those people that they were going to go after. And guess what? They did go after them on false charges, folks. I do like the fact that Bill Barr said we should charge him with RICO because that's a really hard thing to defend against. Baby, you and I have been saying that on this podcast for months, for years. This is a RICO case. This is organized crime across all kinds of states and government boundaries. And they should all be charged under RICO because it's a very hard thing to defend against. I'm hoping that evolves in this thing. So what are we seeing, folks? We got Bondi has convened a grand jury, with the Tulsi Gabbard stuff. But then DOJ launches grand jury probe into Letitia James over anti-Trump lawfare. This is what we want. The Department of Justice has convened a grand jury to investigate New York Attorney General Letitia James. The investigation centers on whether James' office caused a deprivation of legal rights under the color of law through its civil suits against President Donald Trump, his business, and the National Rifle Association. In addition, filings revealed that inquiries being conducted out of Albany, New York, and subpoenas for documents, including information related to James' civil fraud lawsuits against President Trump, were issued this week. The hunters are becoming the hunted. That's what's going on here. And again, for those of you who watch this because you want to do the gotchas and all that, this isn't political retribution. What they did was illegal. This is equal justice under the law. This is enforcing the law. James's office has not commented on a DOJ investigation. However, James' past comments about seeking legal action against Trump, including a campaign pledge to pursue the America First leader legally, could prove damaging. Guess what? She went on and on, over and over in her campaign. I promise you, I will get Donald Trump. I will stop Donald Trump. That's what this whole chase is. Deprivation of legal rights under the color of law. That is a law that says you as an elected official cannot use the power of your office to target an individual, not just the president of the United States, you or I, simply because you don't like their politics. That's what she did. And she's on tape saying it. She's going to lose and she's going to be in big trouble. And that's just not even, that's just part of it, because in April, the Trump Federal Housing Finance Agency requested an investigation into James over mortgage fraud. And the DOJ is investigating that because she committed mortgage fraud. And we're going to have more on that because this seems to be a Democrat thing in a second. Okay. But it gets better. It keeps getting better, folks. Jack Smith, Special Counsel Office opens investigation into Trump prosecutor Jack Smith. The Office of Special Counsel is investigating whether Smith's conduct and his efforts to prosecute Trump constitute improper political activity. And on August 2nd, the Office of Special Counsel confirmed it was investigating whether Smith's conduct through his efforts to prosecute Trump constitute a form of improper political activity. The office is an independent federal agency separate from the DOJ that is tasked with protecting federal whistleblowers and enforcing civil service law, such as the Hatch Act. This is just the beginning for Jack Smith. Jack Smith's going to get put in prison where he belongs because he's a criminal and he committed crimes. But they thought they could get away with it forever, folks. You know why? Because they didn't count on you and I. They didn't expect that you and I would overcome all the roadblocks they threw in front of us, that Donald Trump would overcome them, but you and I did. See, they expected you and I to abandon Trump. Oh, he's a convicted felon. You can't vote for him. We all said, we all bought the felon shirts, right? I'm with the felon. They didn't count on us understanding that they're a bunch of liars. This is propaganda. This is lawfare. This is criminal activity. And we, the American people, were not going to stand for it. They didn't count on that. So they didn't think we would find the documents that were just disclosed this week. They didn't think that Project Veritas would find the documents about Bill Barr. They didn't think we would find the mortgages, okay, that were being fraudulently signed, like this one. It's happening. Schiff under investigation by the Maryland AG for mortgage fraud. Senator Adam Schiff, the man who never missed a chance to lecture America about ethics and accountability, is now the focus of a full-blown federal criminal investigation. On Tuesday, U.S. Attorney Office in Maryland, hardly a bastion of right-wing activism, revealed it is actively pursuing Schiff for alleged mortgage fraud. This isn't some garden variety political dust-up. Schiff faces accusations that he repeatedly lied about his primary residence on federally backed mortgage loan applications spanning over a decade, from 2009 through 2020. While representing California Congress, Schiff allegedly listed a Maryland property as his primary residence to secure more favorable terms on his loan. Simultaneously, he maintained ownership and residency at his Burbank, California condo. The very primary residence promoted as his home base during the 2023 Senate campaign. The acquisitions don't stop with mere paperwork snafus. The Federal Housing Finance Agency referred the matter to the Department of Justice after uncovering evidence that Schiff may have falsified bank documents and property records. That's forgery, folks. Not once, but repeatedly to line his own pockets. If true, these are not trivial offenses. They point to violations of wire fraud, bank fraud, and submitting false financial statements, all crimes carrying serious criminal consequences. The noose tightens most notably around a 2011 affidavit in which Schiff declared under penalty of perjury that the Montgomery County marriage home was his primary residence. Okay? We're going after these people not for revenge, but because they are criminals. They committed crimes. And what you and I have been saying all along is that we need to restore equal justice under the law. We are not a nation at all if we are not a nation of laws and not men. That is what I said at the beginning. We're restoring the foundations of our government, right? What were those things? We were the first nation ever to not be ruled by men and women, monarchs, kings, and queens. We were ruled by a constitution that had laws. This has been violated. We have been mistreated. We have been prosecuted and persecuted for political reasons. And now enough. We're going to end this. And everyone's going to be treated equally. That's what we're about, not revenge. And so this is just one last juicy piece. Breaking, Pam Bondi has appointed Ed Martin as the special prosecutor investigating both Adam Schiff and Letitia James for mortgage fraud. Ed Martin is the guy that the Senate would not confirm to be the D.C. Head person at the DOJ. Okay, he's this guy who's been all over January 6th, who's been fighting for us way before Trump got reelected. And now he's going to be the one investigating Schiff and Letitia James. You think they're going to get justice? I mean that. They're going to get justice. They're not going to get lawfare. They're going to get justice because Ed Martin is an honest guy. So then, you kind of keep moving along here because the story of the week is this whole, Texas, the Democrats have fled the state because Texas wants to redistrict their state, which they have a right to do under the law. And they left the state so you couldn't have a quorum to vote on the redistricting. Okay. Now I've got some strong opinions on this, but basically, after they left, Texas governor orders arrest of Democrat lawmakers who left the state. The Republican House Speaker said he would sign civil arrest warrants to track the lawmakers down amid a fight over redistricting. Gab Abbott then, or the Attorney General Paxton, asked the FBI to get involved, and they're looking to arrest them. Now they're in California, apparently. This is all kabuki theater. Let me make this clear to you. This should never have happened. A week ago Friday, all the Democrats were in their seats at the state capitol, and instead of voting when they had a quorum and forcing them to vote, the rhino speaker, who says he's a Republican but was elected by the Democrats, adjourned the session so they could go meet with Hakeem Jeffries. So the Democrats could go meet with Hakeem Jeffries and then leave the state. It's bull, okay? This is disgusting. The Texas Republicans are a joke, okay? And so we're going to play out this whole kabuki theater and track them down. And then they just did, they had another session yesterday, and the Democrats didn't show up. So now they're saying, we can't take away your pay, but we don't have to deposit electronically in your account. You want your pay, you have to come to the State House and pick up your check. Well, when you do that, you're going to be sitting in your seat and then have a quorum. All right. So they're getting creative. They're finding them $500 a day. It's real simple. We're going to win this. Texas is going to have 5 more House districts. And you know what? When they claim racism and you're trying to gerrymander this so that, there's less minority representation, all 5 of them are majority Hispanic. To basically reflects all the people who've been moving into Texas, okay? And the fact that they're not being represented. And so This is legal what they're doing, but that doesn't mean we have to agree with it, all right? And so let me just give you, a statistic. So what's great about this, and I've had people say, Tom, just accept it. This is war. The Democrats did it before we did, and they did. And you had the buffoon from Massachusetts. The governor of Massachusetts says, if the Republicans, they're trying to cheat, they're trying to rig the 2026 election by redistricting more Republican seats in Texas and Ohio and Florida and other places. And we in Massachusetts will do the same. Except for one thing, Dumbo. There are 0 Republican House seats in your state. 0. And that's what happened with Illinois. They fly to Illinois to have press conferences saying Texas, what they're doing is unfair, and Illinois is the most jerry-rigged state in the union. So here's some statistics for you. MSNBC says maps should mirror voter percentage. So here are the numbers. In California, Trump got 40% of the vote. There are only 17% of the seats are Republican House seats. In Massachusetts, 35% of the vote was for Trump. 0 Republican seats. Connecticut, 38% of the votes were for Trump. 0 seats for Republicans. In New York, Trump got 42%. Guess how many Republican House seats there are? 26%. In Maryland, Trump got 38%. Guess how many Republican House seats there are? 12%. In New Mexico, Trump got 44%. You know how many Republican seats there are in New Mexico? 0. That's jerry-rigging for political reasons. Now, what my friends get upset with me about is I'm against all of this. This isn't good for you and I. This isn't good for the American people. This is good for the parties, right? This is good for parties. They're rigging the voter block so they can win. And you can say, well, the Democrats did it, so we got to do it. The net losers are we the people. Because you know why? Because then they don't have to compete. They don't have to try to convince people. When the Portage County Tea Party and the Ohio Liberty Coalition and we started in Ohio, Ohio was a purple state. We had a Democrat governor, a Democrat secretary of state or attorney general, I forget what it was. There was the House maybe might have been the Democrats. When the Tea Party started, we didn't jerry rig it. We didn't rig the districts. We persuaded people. We convinced them that our policies, our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity was better for you than communist totalitarian control where you serve the state. And now Ohio is a red state. Except, guess what? It doesn't act that way because it's jerry-rigged. And we're going to do it again this year. We're going to jerry-rig two seats. The one here in Akron, the 13th, Akron-Canton, and the one up in the Toledo area, the 9th. And we're going to get 2 more Republican seats. And yeah, I'm for that, but I want to make clear, this is not in our best interest. We, the people, want districts where you have to actually compete. Because if you don't have to compete, I just talked about a merit-based society at the beginning of the show. I want merit-based politics, but they're all about rigging everything. And so Trump's trying to unrig it, but we're still going down the wrong path. It all ties back to the census. And so this is, when I said, that this, the redistricting in the 2020 census, they simply stole seats and they admitted it. After Trump was out of office, they said, oh, we made a mistake. Texas should have gotten more seats and Florida should have gotten more seats and Ohio and these blue states all got seats. It was insane. Here's Stephen Miller kind of spelling that out for you.
Chicago, New York, Massachusetts. Democrats have gerrymandered the vote beyond recognition to try to maintain their advantage in the House elections. On top of that, let's not forget, Democrats rigged the 2020 census by including illegal aliens. Remember, they sued Donald Trump. They sued the administration. They fought tooth and nail to include illegal aliens in the census. 20 to 30 of House Democrat seats wouldn't exist but for illegal aliens. Texas is taking just a small corrective step against this ocean of fraud, this ocean of abuse by the corrupt Democrat Party, Sean.
Think about that. 20 to 30 seats. None of the problems we've been having with the big, beautiful bill and all that stuff happen if the Republicans have a 20 or 30 seat margin. And that's what we're going to have in 2026. Because again, when Texas says we're going to get 5 more seats, that's 5 from the Democrats that go to the Republicans. That's 10. If Ohio gets 2, that's 14. Okay? I mean, that's 4. So it's 14 total. The margins are going to change. So what has Trump done? He's ordered a new census. And here at the story that WeThePeopleConvention.org, we put the map up of what they did in 2020. And you can see the states where I said, Arkansas, did not get the number of seats. Florida, Texas, Tennessee, but Hawaii and Minnesota and Delaware and all those places, they got more seats. So Trump has ordered a new census. President Trump said Thursday morning has ordered the Commerce Department to begin working on a new census, emphasizing that those who are in the country illegally not be counted in the total. I've instructed the Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern day facts and figures. Importantly, using the results and information gained from the presidential election of 2024, Trump wrote on Truth Social. People who are in the country illegal will not be counted in the census. All right. I posted on X, and you can see all my things on X, and you should follow me on X, TomZWTPC. TomZWTPC. That's where I'm most active throughout the day. I said, this needs to be done and not the stupid old-fashioned way by paying thousands of people to knock on doors and be lied to by the people inside. Doge could do a super accurate census in days. In days. We all know that the CIA and FBI and other government agencies like the IRS know everything about us. Then you have social media and Google and banks and credit agencies, all whom sell your information to all kinds of peoples and would gladly sell them to the U.S. Census Department, right? Or the Commerce Department. You think they don't know how many people are living in a household and what sex, age, and national origin they are? I guarantee you they do. I guarantee you they do. Come on. Doge the census, Mr. President, and show America what a lie past censuses have been. Make America great again. That is what we need to do. And Charlie Kirk had a guy on for the Center to Renew America who talked about this. And basically what was great news to me is it's not like Trump has to get a law passed to do a census in the middle. Censuses are done every 10 years, okay? But the law says you have to do a census at least every 10 years. That doesn't mean you can't do it more often. And then the guy on the Charlie Kirk show said that it is not unprecedented to revise a census. And so we have the documents from the Commerce Department after the 2020 election that said, oh, we screwed up the census, so Trump has every right to fix that. And then doge it to exclude illegals and fix it even more because the dispute, and that'll go to court. Revising it back to what they screwed up, which could give us 20 to 30 more seats, that's pretty straightforward. That's going to happen for 2026, I'm telling you. But as far as getting rid of the illegals, which may change it even more dramatically, that's going to go to court because basically the census law says you have to count all people in each state, not just citizens. And Trump is arguing that if you're using it to proportion the states for elections and that results in money being spent in those states, that they shouldn't count illegals. That's probably going to go to court. But you know what else is going to court? This is already going to court. Supreme to consider legality of race-based districts and possible boon to GOP redistricting effort. What is this about, folks? What is this about? Well, Democrats have gone as far as fleeing the home state to avoid voting on the issue. Ironically, to deep blue Illinois, where racial gerrymandering has favored Democrats for decades. Race-based districts also face a second prong of scrutiny from the Trump Justice Department. The Supreme Court's decision to scrutinize the constitutionality of race-based congressional districts under the Voting Rights Act may give Republicans a major boost in their redistricting efforts ahead of the 2026 midterms. The constitutionality of race-based districts, which are primarily concentrated in the southern United States, are a vestige of anti-discrimination efforts during the civil rights era, are also facing challenges from the Trump Justice Department, which has prodded at least one state to reconsider its district maps over constitutional concerns. The case comes before the court as Republicans in several states, frustrated with the results of the 2020 census, are planning to a rare mid-decade redistricting to carve out more friendly seats, a bid to swing the 2026 election midterms decisively in the party's favor. Okay? Louisiana was previously directed by a lower federal court to draw a map containing two major minority districts. So in other words, two districts that have majority populations that are minorities. They were required to draw a map for each of those two districts. In the earlier map, black voters, who make up about 1/3 of the state's population, only had one majority-minority congressional district. However, that court-directed change was challenged by non-black residents of the state who alleged that the redrawing violated the 14th and 15th Amendments of the Constitution, which grant equal protection under the law and prohibit denying the rights to vote based on race or color, respectively. That challenge has now made its way to the High Court, and I think they're going to strike down the race-based districting. Okay? It's not equal. It's not equal that a minority gets their own districts. No, especially if, like I'm saying to you, I'm against redistricting, I'm against gerrymandering. Why? I want Republicans to compete for black votes. And guess what? Donald Trump just did and did well. And how about Hispanic votes? Donald Trump won the Hispanic vote. So why do we need to redistrict this? Force them to serve everyone. This court case, the census, are going to change all kinds of things. All right? Now, you and I can play a role. I have been a friend of Jenny Beth Martin from Tea Party Patriots since we all started. Okay? And I'm on their conference calls every week, and they have a plan to pass the SAVE Act. And you can go to our website at wethepeopleconvention.org, and you'll see this graphic. It says Pass the SAVE Act, and there's a link there for you to click a button and fill out this petition. Now, what's really cool about what Tea Party Patriots Action is doing is that they're going to get you and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of you, to sign this petition, which says what? The SAVE Act is going to make it so that illegals cannot register to vote. That's the problem. The way the law is right now, California can have illegals register to vote, even though the law says they can't vote in federal elections. But then how do you stop them when how do you know in the voter rolls? So they're trying to get the SAVE Act passed. But what's beautiful about this is that they're going to take the petitions and they're going to give it to Congress, and they're going to say, we want you to attach the SAVE Act to one of these must-pass bills that you're going to pass in September so that it gets in effect for the 2026 election. So you can go to wethepeopleconvention.org. This is a direct ask. I'm asking you to do this. I'm asking you to then share this with other people and help drive petitions. If you go to this page, you will see that Jenny Beth and her people are asking you to put on events in your state and do sign waves and do all other kinds of things to help get petitions. So if you want to go deeper, the links are all there. But just go to wethepeopleconvention.org, go to the article, Pass the SAVE Act, sign the petition, share it with others, put it on your social media. Let's do our part. Let's do our part to stop the cheating that has allowed Democrats to have power they don't deserve. They never earned it. It was all fake. It was all Nancy Pelosi's AstroTurf. Okay? And so why do we have to do this? Why? Because we're facing an enemy funded by the communist Chinese. Yeah, if you don't believe me, go to wethepeopleconvention.org. Right on the front page is a link. Democrats, China. You'll see how they've been bought by the Chinese. Okay? They're a communist party now. So their goal is to destroy the United States any way possible. And when they stole the 2020 election, they used the power of government to try to turn it into a totalitarian state. One party rule, right? We're going to get Trump. We're going to keep him from running again. We're going to put him in prison. We're going to put all you guys in prison, all you Trump supporters, right, who are domestic terrorists, as Joe Biden said. And then we're going to use government's money to do what? To do exactly what government's not allowed to do, to be partisan. They turned the whole government into a partisan body to keep them in power. Here's your proof. Exclusive. How Biden abused the federal workforce to snatch votes. President Joe Biden allied his Department of Agriculture now. Department of Agriculture. What does that have to do with voter registration? With liberal activist groups to register Americans to vote and staff polling locations, potentially in violations of federal law. The practice has since been undone by President Donald Trump, who directed his administration to conduct a review of the Biden administration's federal Get Out the Vote programs. Biden signed an executive order in March 2021, right? Just saying we stole the election. Now we got to seal it. We got to lock it in. Rescinded by Trump in March 2025, which required federal agencies to register and mobilize voters. Under Biden's order, the U.S. Department of Agriculture partnered with the American Civil Liberties Union and Demos, a left-wing public policy advocacy group, to implement the president's plan. This memo that was leaked was revealed. The Biden administration's Rural Housing Service and National School Lunch Programs were also used in service of the Get Out the Vote plan, the memo said. Under the Biden administration, instead of prioritizing the accurate delivery of food nutrition to Americans in need, the Biden administration and its USDA partnered with groups like the ACLU and Demos. The official noted that the ACLU has no connection to USDA, but still there was this connection to do this. The official added that under the USDA's work, anyone who applied for a federally funded food benefit program was likely encouraged to vote and given a voter registration form through the Biden plan. You think they were given a form to register to vote and not told to vote Democrat? Not told that vote for us if you want to keep getting this money from the government? That's what they did. That's what we had to stop. They criminalized the entire federal government. And I believe, Rico, that these people in the Department of Agriculture who followed Biden's executive order should be prosecuted. That's election interference. And so when I say to you, this is going to be huge and it's going to take time because it isn't 8, 9, 10, 15 people. It's hundreds, if not thousands. They all need to be prosecuted. Why? Not for revenge. They broke the law, and we need to make sure no one would ever dare do this ever again in history. No one would do it. If they don't go to jail, they won't learn their lesson. And so what's going on now? Because Trump is just crushing them everywhere on a full attack, going after Letitia James, going after Jack Smith, going after Obama, Brennan, all these guys, okay? So what are they doing? Oh, they're trying to gin up to Republicans that you elected. They're sending Democrats to town halls. And I had to take this story because I got it from an email I get every morning from the New York Times. Gag me with a spoon that I have to read that piece of crap every day, but I need to know what nonsense they're spewing. And I mean, it's just unbelievable. They call themselves a newspaper. They send out this email that is nothing but anti-Trump, anti-Republican, anti-American. There's no balance here at all. They're so Trump deranged, it's unbelievable, okay? So they had this article that they were so proud of. and I call it Town Hall Performance Theater. And it's this woman who says, Annie Karni, Karni, from the New York Times, says, I cover Congress, is what her title is. Oh, I cover Congress. No, you don't. You're a Democratic operative. You don't cover Congress. You try to manipulate Congress for your ideology. You're not a journalist. So I want to just point out, I won't read this whole thing because it's disgusting, but she says, pour one out for the town hall, that venerated vehicle of retail politics in America, with Republicans loath to face angry voters. Really? Especially as they try to sell President Trump's unpopular domestic policy law, many of them are simply choosing not to. Representative Mike Flood of Nebraska got a reminder of why this week. He stood in front of more than 700 voters for over an hour on Monday and answered questions over a constant hum of jeers and chants. Chants. Would any of you, would any Tea Party person, would any patriot, MAGA member, have you ever chanted at a public meeting? Chanted. That's the wacko leftists with their little drums and their horns. They're the Trump derangements. They're the pink-haired, blue-haired nose ring people, okay? It was his third recent town hall, so he knew what he was in for. The recent sessions have been especially difficult for Republican lawmakers because they are being asked to explain a vote for legislation that significantly cuts Medicaid, the health insurance system that working families and poor Americans increasingly rely on, and cuts food benefits and other programs. Trump is providing them with little air cover after demanding they muscle his unpopular plans through Congress. Unpopular plans? Unpopular plans? Cut Medicaid? This is a case of her believing her own lies. The only thing they did to Medicaid is throw the frickin' illegals out so the Medicaid can go to real Americans. That's what they did. They cut the stolen money out. Every Republican should be proud as hell to talk about that. And you unpopular? Look at the polling. More people support the big beautiful bill than anything. More, how about talk about cutting illegal immigration? Think that's not popular? But this is the crap that they do. And then they send their people, who I'm telling you are paid for the majority, to these Republican town halls to make it look like this is so unpopular. It's AstroTurf. It's propaganda. And you, all of us, we have to stop it by showing up and confronting them and supporting our House and Senate members. Because they've done, not willingly, I've talked about this, they wouldn't have done it if Trump didn't force them, if you and I didn't force them. Steve Bannon talks about the War Room Posse, man. Turning Point USA, they're doing it because they're afraid. That's okay for now. That's better than them not doing it, okay? But then the left always eats their own, always eats their own. Protesters arrested at the offices of Senator Schumer and Gillibrand. An estimated 200 protesters showed up at the New York offices of Senator Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand this afternoon to demand that the senators let Gaza live. They chanted, right, slogans, and eventually a number of them were arrested, including some state elected officials. An anti-Israel New York City councilman, woman Tiffany Cabin, was arrested along with several other protesters as scores of screaming demonstrators descended on the Manhattan offices of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand Friday, sources told the Post. Cabin joined roughly 200 pro-Palestinian activists from Jewish Voices for Peace, Jewish Voices for Peace, my ass, who began occupying the Midtown Office building around 12:20 p.m., donning shirts with Let Gaza Live emblazoned across them. Okay? They attack their own because they don't believe in democracy. That's a lie. They don't believe in a vote. They don't believe in persuading you. They're going to force you. You will do what I tell you. You will say a man can be a woman or else I will take your job. I will destroy your family. That's the tyranny of the left. That's what you're fighting. You got to know that. And you got to fight that. To quote the quote I put out in as many of my emails from Winston Churchill. Because this is evil. They are evil. And you have no choice but to fight evil, because it will either kill you now or kill you later, but it will surely kill you. That's a quote from Winston Churchill. Live by that quote. When you see evil, you must confront it. You must. It's not a choice. It's not an option. So I'm going to wrap up the first half of the podcast because I'm saying they're doing this, right? They're fighting for their lives. We've got to wipe them off the face of the earth. If we redo the census, if we get illegals out of the census, if we redistrict according to Americans, the Democrats are done. They can't win the House or the Senate. They can't win the national presidential election. They're done. That's what needs to happen because they're not Democrats. They're commies. They're commies. So I'll leave you with this little nugget because it'll show you what's going on. Trump builds $274 million war chest ahead of midterms. Billionaire Elon Musk and Jeff Yass, along with crypto industry donors, helped President Trump raise $236 million for his political operation in the first 6 months of 2025, an unprecedented sum for a second-term president. The latest findings to the Federal Election Commission show that the fundraising haul, which includes donations to 3 leadership political action committees, joint fundraising committees, and an allied super PAC, leaves Trump with $274 million in cash on hand. It's a massive war chest he can deploy on behalf of Republican House and Senate candidates in the midterm elections when the incumbent president's party generally loses seats, and it highlights the continuing grip Trump retains in the GOP. So again, these House Republicans and Senate Republicans who have to run in 26 have to depend on Trump. So they got to do what Trump wants. They should do it because it's what we want, but they're going to do it because Trump is what's going to withhold the money if they don't do it. Understand? Power politics. Trump Super PAC, MAGA Inc., provide the biggest draw for campaign cash, taking in $177 million. The president has held 4 $1 million a plate dinners for MAGA Inc. donors, as well as a $1.5 million per plate event for entrepreneurs and investors in cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence, 2 emerging technologies that have been a focus of his administration. Is it a focus of his administration because it's good for America? Yeah, partially. But is it a focus of his administration because they're writing checks? Yeah, probably. I don't like it. That's crony capitalism. But that's the way the game's played, and we got to play it to win. But it should make you uncomfortable. Cryptocurrency industry donors poured money in as well. Forest Dax Inc., parent of Exchange Crypto, gave $10 million, while Blockchain.com Inc. gave $5 million. Venture capitalists Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz each gave $3 million, while billionaire twins Tyler Winklevoss and Cameron Winklevoss combined to give just over $2 million. MAGA Inc. got $5 million donation from Musk, a close Trump ally who fell out with the president after leaving his role overseeing the Department of Government Efficiency in late May. Trump says this week that he likes Elon Musk. He thinks he's a good guy, that he had a bad moment. And I expect them to get closer because it'll be expedient. It'll just be the right thing to do. Okay? So we got the money. We got the plan. We're attacking on all fronts. It is going to make America great again, better than ever. We're going to restore our Constitution and the rule of law and the values of America. And we're going to change the world to get merit be the real thing, not everyone's equal and it's socialism and all that. That leads to nothing but death and disaster. You are living in historic times. I hope you've enjoyed the first part of the podcast. I hope you'll stick around for the rest of it. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and we'll be back after these messages. The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio, 44312. when you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button. And if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. If you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. What, something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. So if you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. And it's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share this whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like, and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People Convention site, and that you get more people to look at it, because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others. Thanks a lot.
All right, welcome back. I can't thank you enough for taking your time to watch this podcast and to share it. We try to give you the tools to then spread the word. In that video, it showed you that, on all of our website pages, there's share buttons. So when you see a story, like the one I asked you to do, sign the petition to pass the SAVE Act, on that webpage, you can click on a button and send an email or a text message, or get a link to post on social media to send that page to family and friends. Okay. So we're trying to help. We're trying to provide tools. That's what your donations pay for, is us to be able to activate our 100,000 members across the United States to do things that advance our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So, please use it. We're posting the podcast now on X every time, on YouTube, on Rumble, on our webpage. So you can get it a lot of different ways. It's on, Apple podcasts. It's on, different podcast sites for those who listen. So sharing it is critical. Why? Because the more people who watch it, the more who will sign the petition to do the SAVE Act, the more people who will do the other things we ask them to do. So thank you all, because it's not just about giving, it's about doing. It's not passive. Being an American citizen isn't being a spectator. It's being an active participant in our self-governance. And it starts with governing yourself and then helping other people who want to be involved with, our government, who are going to have, say over what happens in your community, in your school, wherever. So it's not a spectator sport. And I'm here to inform you, not to entertain you, and to give you the tools and the information you need to make good decisions. So thank you, all of you, for watching this podcast. I think you're going to like the second half. It goes a little faster for those who are used to it. Second half, we go a little quicker stories, but they're all important. This was a good story I posted. Skilled trade jobs are in demand because of AI and not threatened by it. I put this out this week. It's at wethepeopleconvention.org. I sent a text and an email. Many of you shared it. This guy from Forbes, Tim Barjarn, wrote this op-ed, and he said, for most of my career, when asked to speak to high school students or incoming first-year college students and give them career advice, I mostly steered them towards career and technology. I would talk about how I saw tech jobs driving the future, especially in IT, programming, security, and areas that would be important to tech infrastructure. Looking back, given that today AI has threatened the jobs of millions of white-collar tech workers, I should have also recommended another option that looks perhaps a safer bet: blue-collar jobs. When I was in high school in the late 60s, one of the more interesting programs offered separate trade school specialties. My high school provided programs for auto repair, electricians, HVAC, and plumbing. At that time, as a certified geek, I did not appreciate these programs in my high school and their potential as a significant career opportunity for many in my class. But decades of watching manufacturing jobs disappear overseas and being told the future belongs to the knowledge workers, America's blue-collar workforce may be one of the safest careers to have. As artificial intelligence threatens to automate away millions of white-collar positions, the very trades that were once dismissed as dead-end jobs are emerging as the economy's most recession-proof careers. A recent Microsoft analysis examining AI-resistant jobs reveals the scope of the economic reversal. The 40 most vulnerable occupations: translator, historians, sales representatives, and other desk-bound professionals employ roughly 11 million Americans. Meanwhile, the 40 least vulnerable positions, heavy equipment operators, roofers, electricians, and similar hands-on roles, currently employ about 5.5 million workers. Micro, the Dirty Jobs host, captured this shift perfectly at a recent AI summit, which I have the videos on our website multiple times, and it's linked in this story. Micro said, we've been telling kids for 15 years to learn to code. Well, we said, AI is coming for the coders. They're not coming for the welders. They're not coming for the plumbers. The irony of our AI revolution, and get this, is that it requires massive physical infrastructure that only human hands can build and maintain. Every AI query runs on servers housed in data centers that need electricians, HVAC technicians, and construction workers. I went into a central server farm in Oregon that needed massive air conditioning to cool the hundreds of servers running 24/7. We need the workers to do that. It is your job. I will ask you every week, this podcast, from now till it's done, to help recruit 10 million American patriots to join the trades. 10 million. And I will ask you every week, what have you done this week? How many people did you say, hey, to that waiter, to that waitress, to the kid at the grocery store, to someone in your family who's underemployed, meaning that they're not making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, $100,000 a year, say, hey, have you ever considered learning a trade? That's important. In this story that I posted about the skilled trades, there's a link on here to the it's called the Apprenticeship USA, where you can click and see if you can get an apprenticeship, meaning paid training for the trades. Click on that link. Figure out if you can use that to help people who want to join the trades. This is a direct ask. I'm going to ask you every week. I want you to write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org, info@wethepeopleconvention.org, and say, Yeah, I talked to 3 people this week, Tom. I talked to my high school and asked what they're going to do to help promote the trades. I've talked to my city council, my township trustees, whoever, your township. What is your township doing to help attract people to the trades? How many people in a township are underemployed? A ton, probably more than half. They need to learn a trade because we need to defeat the communist Chinese and win the AI race. And we're not going to win it if we can't build the energy infrastructure and if we can't build the data centers to defeat them. I've talked about this, about how it's like the nuclear arms race. I'm not going to shut up. I'm going to keep talking about it. You have to personally commit to help recruit 10 million people. That's not that many. We're a country of at least 330 million people. We can recruit 10 million people to join the trades. And I'm going to show you a story coming up where the manufacturing is starting to happen and take place. But this is another big story that you may not have gotten. Apple increases U.S. commitment to $600 billion, announcing America Manufacturing Program. Apple today announced a new $100 billion commitment to America, a significant increase of its U.S. investments that now totals $600 billion over the next 4 years. Today's announcement, which he did at the White House with President Trump, includes an ambitious new American manufacturing program dedicated to bringing even more of Apple's supply chain and advanced manufacturing to the U.S. through AMP. Apple will increase its investments across America and incentivize global companies to manufacture even more critical components in the United States. Today, we are proud to increase our investment to $600 billion over 4 years, Tim Cook said. This includes new and expanded work with 10 companies across America. They produce components that are used in Apple products sold all over the world, and we're grateful to the president for his support. Here's a graphic that they put out, and it will be linked in the article in the story. They're going to create 450,000 jobs in the United States with suppliers and partners in all 50 states. They are going to manufacture at 79 U.S. factories and expanding U.S. manufacturing with companies include Corning, Texas Instruments, Broadcom, and let's see, TMC, Amcor Technology, Global Wafer Company, etc. So like Corning has a glass factory in Kentucky. Remember Corning? That created all the fiber optic cables and things like that? Well, now they're going to create the glass for the front of the iPhones in Kentucky. This is what President Trump's tariffs are doing for you, for the American people, for individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. He's creating the jobs. Now we've got to fill the jobs. And it's working, and there's the proof. That's serious stuff, which you may not have heard about, but you'll be able to share that story with friends on our website, okay? This story I'm so excited about because I have complained and warned and worried about this issue. We are finally addressing our manufacturing issues for munitions, for bombs, munitions, ammunition, shells. Thanks to years of shipping munitions to other parts of the world so other countries can shoot them at their enemies, our munition stocks have grown alarmingly low. That now finally be changing. Here's the catch. We haven't ramped up our production, not in any significant sense, since 1945. Our troops can have the best training, the best support, the best technology, and even the best weapons in the world, but without ammo, all of that is for no more consequence than a kid's pea shooter. Ammo is what's needed, and now under the leadership of President Donald Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, munitions productions has been picking up again. Just a few weeks ago, a new fully automated 155 millimeter artillery shell production facility called Union Technologies opened outside Dallas, Texas. This comes on the heels of another new load assembly and pack munitions facility that opened in Arkansas in April. Also on the heels came a May ribbon cutting at Crane Army Ammunition activity in Indiana for a new explosive railcar holding yard. This is the first time in many decades the Army has done this, leaders told Congress. The expansion will double the output from this location as the Army found, no surprise, that inadequate rail holding space in times of heavy demand reduces readiness. In other words, they make the shells and then they got to do something with them. Well, they load them on rail cars so they can be shipped where they're needed. They didn't have enough rail cars. Now we're fixing that. Also, thanks to recent new funding, the Radford Army Munitions plant is integrating advanced chemical processing capabilities into its manufacturing lines. This is the sole nitrocellulose and propellant manufacturing site in the U.S. built, and you guessed it, since 1941. This is what needs to happen. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act recently allocated an additional $25.3 billion for munitions, missiles, counter-drone and supply chain investments. As necessary, the bill establishes 3 munitions reserve programs to expand capacity. Specifically, the bill allocates $1 billion for the expansion and acceleration of qualification activities and technical data management to enhance competition in the defense industrial base, and an additional $500 million for the expansion of advanced manufacturing techniques in munitions. America is coming back, because we can't come back if we don't have a strong military. And we can't have a strong military if we don't have shells and ammo. And so we can't have peace through strength if we don't do this. The good news is we're doing it. Because why? You worked so hard and gave everything to elect President Trump for a second term, and then you pushed the Senate, who did not want to confirm Pete Hegseth, did not want to confirm Tulsi Gabbard, did not want to confirm our people, but you pushed them to do it. This is the result. We had to do it to save our nation. You're saving our nation. This is, again, I'm big on MAHA, folks. You should be too. Make America healthy again. RFK is just doing an amazing job. He's breaking a lot of barriers. More MAHA wins. 12 states cutting soda candy from food stamps. And what's being praised as another Make America Healthy Again win, a growing number of states have approved to limit food stamp purchases to healthier options, cutting out sugary drinks and candy. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins on Monday authorized waivers for another 6 states asking to limit purchases with food stamps known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. That latest states to join MAHA trends are West Virginia, Florida, Colorado, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Texas. In total, 12 states are now approved to limit food stamps since President Donald Trump took office in January. Okay, now limit food stamps. They're going to say, oh, he's cutting the food program. No. They're just saying, you're going to get the same money, you got to buy healthy food. Below the 12 states that cut it, I'm not going to read those because I just said that. Kennedy on Tuesday reaffirmed his message that taxpayers should not be forced to pay for unhealthy foods like soda and candy, which he says are fueling the obesity epidemic in the U.S. and making Americans sick. We are spending $405 million a day on SNAP, and about 10% is going to sugary drinks. And if you added candies to that, it's about 13 to 17%. You can't fix the problem by funding the problem, right? You can't do that. U.S. taxpayers should not be paying to feed the poorest kids in the country food that will give them diabetes, RFK said. We all believe in free choice. We live in a democracy. People can make their own choice about what they're going to buy and what they're not going to buy. If you want to buy a sugary soda, you should be able to do that. But U.S. taxpayers, you and I, should not pay for it. Hear, hear. Individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. There it is, baby. And then this one got a lot of people upset, got a lot of us really happy. RFK Jr. cancels $500 million in federal funding for mRNA vaccine research. What's this about? Health and Human Services. Now, this story is from Forbes, which is biased, and I'm going to point out their bias so you can laugh at them, okay? But you also will get the message.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced he is canceling contracts and grants worth nearly $500 million earmarked to develop mRNA vaccines, as the longtime vaccine critic has repeatedly cast doubts about the safety and efficacy of these shots, despite pushback from scientists. Yeah, how about because of support from scientists? First bias. In a statement Tuesday night, the Department of Health and Human Services described the move as a coordinated wind down of mRNA vaccine development activities under the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, BARDA. The agency claimed, they said, the decision was made after carrying out a comprehensive review of the mRNA-related investments made during the COVID-19 pandemic. Kennedy said BARDA will scrap 22 mRNA vaccine development investments. Again, they say, claiming that data showed these vaccines failed to protect effectively against upper respiratory infections like COVID and flu. No, they're not claiming. They did the test. BARDA's job is to do the tests. They did the tests. They don't work. We're not funding them. Got it, lefties? Got it? It's real simple. We're not claiming. You're the ones who said, believe the science, except you didn't have science. You had propaganda. You had ideology. RFK Jr. has science. Kennedy also claimed that HHS will shift this funding towards safer, broader vaccine platforms that remain effective even as viruses mutate, without offering any specifics. See, always a jab, always a jab. The noted vaccine skeptic, right? We're going to trash him. We're not going to say the guy that Trump appointed to guide America back to health also insists that HHS supports safe, effective vaccines for every American who wants them. Okay? This is how they slant it. But you're not buying it because you're getting news at other sources. If you go to X.com, go to Tom's EWTPC, you'll see RFK Jr. explaining that in their testing, these mRNA vaccines do two bad things. One, because they only target one part of the flu or whatever it is, the COVID virus, they actually force the virus to mutate. And then two, it doesn't fix the mutation. They're a waste of money. He describes it in full. And so, he's got, I saw a meme on X that I loved. It said, I sure wish they would have, the experts, these lefties would have asked as many questions of Fauci as they are of RFK Jr. All of a sudden, Forbes and CNN have all kinds of questions for RFK Jr. Oh, but they didn't have any questions for Fauci, right? No questions when he said, you don't need masks, they don't work. Oh, you need masks, right? Oh, no question. Just do what he says. Yeah. Expose it, be educated. So I'm going to play this little clip for you. I thought this was really interesting. Listen to what RFK has to say about food.
There's an entire emerging body of science that links microbiome to mental health, what they call the gut-brain connection. There's these extraordinary studies that have been done in prisons and juvenile detention facilities where they change the foods, and the results are extraordinary. In one juvenile detention facility, and this is pretty typical, the suicide rates went down by 100%. The use of restraints went down by 75%.
When they just changed the food?
When they just changed the diet. There's a professor at Harvard who is curing schizophrenia with dietary changes. And violence went down in prisons by 47%. So one of the things that we're urging governors to do is to look at these areas and to do what they can to start changing the diets in the schools, getting the food dyes out that we know affect behavior. So, there's opportunities now for all of us to live up to our obligation to our children and really give them a chance in life and change not only their physical health, but also their mental health.
Wow. Folks, many of you know, I had a heart attack a year ago. I've changed my diet. I'm eating non-processed foods almost exclusively. Right? I'm working out 3 days a week. I'm taking care of my health. I'm proud of our children who are taking care of our grandchildren, that they are shopping and they are buying non-processed foods for their kids. They're giving them healthy food. It's going to pay off amazingly. Okay.
But here's the dirty little secret. We have been destroying our own children. We've been destroying ourselves. We don't have a healthcare industry. We have a sick care industry. Your doctor, your hospital, the drug manufacturers, all of them, agriculture, their goal is to make you sick, not to keep you healthy. RFK Jr., think about that. RFK Jr. is trying to flip that on its head. You think they're making enemies, right? The mRNA people or Moderna, those guys are going to file lawsuits, big ags. What do you think Coca-Cola and Pepsi and these guys are going to say if you stop buying soda at schools for SNAP? What is that, $400 million a day? 10% of it, $40 million a day going to Coca-Cola and Pepsi or whatever their corporate names are? Yeah. How about making some frickin' healthy drinks? How's that for an answer? How about you making America great again by making your products healthy again? How about we start that trend? That's why RFK is so important. And that's why you got to be locked in on this. You got to share that video. You got to share these stories. He's fighting for your health. He's fighting for your kids' health, your grandkids' health, your health. Wow. That's what they're going to remember in 100 years, how we saved humanity from itself, from suicide by food. Okay, moving on. Sorry, I get a little passionate about some of these things. Couple important things that I want to point out that are interesting. A federal judge allows ESG coal case to move forward while 26 states demand anti-ESG commitments. What is this about? See, everything's moving so fast, you lose track. But I showed how the Biden administration weaponized government to make sure they stayed in power forever in the first half of the show, right? With the segment about the United States Department of Agriculture registering voters. Well, this thing was where they basically forced all the big banks, Citibank, JP Morgan, whatever, to basically buy stock in all the coal companies and then put them out of business. And now we've been fighting back against that. And a federal judge denied BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard's motion to dismiss a lawsuit alleging the firms conspired to artificially constrict the market for coal through anti-trade practices. 26 states' financial officers sent a letter to 17 firms requiring them to prove that they are no longer using this ESG. Remember, that was an environmental, social, governance criteria. The left-wing lunatics forced all our big corporations to say, it is your duty not to make a profit for your shareholders, not to give your customers what they want. Your duty is to save the world. And so everything you do must improve the environment, improve our social things like supporting trans, okay, and CRT, and must support changes in governance to socialism. And they did it. And it was wrong. And it was illegal. And this case is proceeding. You got to keep fighting, but the fight doesn't end. We got to clean this up. Now, they're all backing off and saying, oh, no, we're not doing that anymore. Make them pay. We need coal. We need lots of coal because we're going to need all the energy we can produce. And coal is cheap and it's not killing the planet. That was a lie. This is a good thing. And then to keep on that theme with the banks and the Biden regime and the left using force, not persuasion, not debate. In our culture, we have free speech is protected because we're supposed to have free political speech. I'm supposed to say coal is good. You can say coal is bad, and then we can come to an agreement. Prove it. They never proved coal was bad. They just forced you to accept that they said that. This is the problem. This is what we're taking apart. So Biden regime pressured JP Morgan, Bank of America, to debank President Trump after January 6th. President Trump said this. Two of the country's largest banking giants debanked President Trump under pressure from the Biden regime, the New York Post reported. Early Tuesday, President Trump told CNBC's Squawk Box that the Bank of America and JP Morgan rejected him as a customer after he tried to deposit $1 billion in their bank, and they said no.
Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan said, we can't do it, Trump said. So I went to another one. I ended up going to smaller banks all over the place. I mean, I was putting $10 million here, $10 million there. It was later reported that JP Morgan and Bank of America kicked President Trump off their platforms after pressure from Biden's banking regulators over his speech on January 6th. That's illegal, folks. And the people in the Biden administration who did that need to be part of the RICO, okay? Need to be part of the RICO. People at the banks tell the Post that Biden's banking cops at the Office of Corruption, at the Office of Comptroller of the Currency, the FDIC, and the Federal Reserve often use the nebulous nature of the edict to go beyond debanking money launderers and drunk kings. They were pressured to include people who have heterodox political and business ties that often included conservatives and anyone participating in the January 6th protest. Earlier Tuesday, it was reported that President Trump is preparing to unleash a powerful executive order targeting woke banks that have waged quiet war against conservatives, Christians, and cryptocurrency companies. The Wall Street Journal reports that the Trump administration is preparing to fine and investigate financial institutions that discriminate against customers based on political or religious beliefs. Yeah, that's not America. That's China. That's a totalitarian state. That's what we were becoming. That's what you and I stopped. That's why you watch this show. That's why you're part of the We the People convention. That's why you fought so hard, gave your time, effort, money, blood, sweat, and tears because you knew we were going to lose our nation. We're this close to losing our nation. But you stood up. You fought back. You elected Donald Trump and the House and the Senate and your state legislators to save our country. And it's paying off. There's another example. All right, got to get on to some international news. All right, I always do this in the second half. I know you guys expect that, but it's important. It's not just a fight here. So last week I told you, the whole Israeli thing, what's the answer? And I personally have told you, I think they should just get everybody out of Gaza and leave it in rumbles for 100 years as a symbol of this is what happens when you commit terror. Okay? Well, maybe this is a step in that direction and people are not happy. Israeli Security Cabinet approves plan to take full military control of Gaza City. The military were prepared to take control of Gaza City while providing humanitarian aid to the civilian population outside the combat zones. Netanyahu had earlier outlined more plans, saying that Israel plans to establish full military control over the Gaza Strip with the goal of eventually transferring authority to a local security force capable of governing the territory effectively without the influence of Hamas. We want to liberate ourselves and liberate the people of Gaza from the awful terror of Hamas. That is the goal. How do you achieve it? Well, people are going to say, genocide, the Jews are destroying. No, they don't want a force, a military force, right next door to them, funded by Iran, their stated goal is to destroy them. Why is that wrong for them not wanting that? I don't get it. And then there was this big story this week about the starvation, that they're starving in Gaza. The Israelis are killing civilians who are trying to get food. I'm here to tell you, and there's proof online, pictures. The New York Times had a big story, and they showed a picture of a starving child. And then there's pictures that came out later that it was all set up. It was a lie. It was propaganda against Israel. And even President Trump got fooled. And a lot of you guys, I get your emails. You're saying I'm a Jewish apologist. I'm for genocide. Tom Zalistowski, you don't get it. I do get it. I see with my own eyes. I think with my own brain. Hamas are experts of propaganda. They've infiltrated the U.S. media, and they're lying. They are terrorists. They deserve to be wiped off the face of the earth. That's my position. You may not like it, but I don't know any other thing that works. Why? Because you must fight evil.
because it will either kill you now or kill you later, but it will surely kill you. They have killed a whole bunch of Jews. And yes, a whole bunch of them have been killed by the Jews, but that's the way it works. F-A-F-O. Okay? You don't have to like my opinion, but I'm giving it to you because I think it gives you perspective. That's what's going on there. In the meantime, protests, invade Schumer and Gillibrand's office, let Gaza live. All these protests around the United States. Yeah, well, you know what's going on elsewhere that no one gives a damn about? ISIS soldiers behead Christians in Mozambique, burning church and homes. It's silent genocide. Islamic State affiliates burning churches, beheading Christians in Africa, and no one's doing anything about it. Middle East Media Research Institute Vice President Alberto Miguel Fernandez told Fox News Digital ISIS-aligned soldiers in the African nation of Mozambique are boasting of attacks on Christian villages. International observers are reporting that ISIS-aligned soldiers, Islamics, right, Muslims, are beheading Christians and burning churches and homes. They showed videos. They got photos. MR said the photos show ISIS operatives raiding villages, burning a church and homes. The image also allegedly depict the beheading of a member of what the jihadists considered infidel militias and 2 Christian civilians. Rampaging jihadist groups celebrated the killings. Okay? The jihadist groups are in a position to take over not 1, not 2, but several countries in Africa. Taking over the whole country or most of several countries is dangerous. Fernandez, a former U.S. diplomat, said, it's very dangerous for the national security of the United States, let alone the security of the poor people who are there. Okay? What are we doing about that? Where's all the protests? Why are there protests for the anti-Jewish protests, but not for the anti-Muslim protests? Why are killing people in Gaza, such a hate crime and genocide, but killing Christians is not? Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? I think we got our priorities a little wrong. I think we got our priorities a lot wrong. So, in the meantime, Trump will host these 2 nations for a historic peace accord. This is just amazing. Armenia and Azerbaijan, peace deal. What to know about the decades-old conflict. Within the past 4 details, the 2 former Soviet republics have fought 2 major wars and countless skirmishes. President Donald Trump hosted the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan at the White House on August 8th, where they signed joint declarations ending decades of conflicts and paving the way for a transit corridor through the South Caucasus region. What's that about? Dubbed the Trump route for international peace and prosperity, the planned corridor will traverse southern Armenia just north of the Iranian border. Here's the background on the long-running conflicts and what the new transport corridor will mean. Bottom line is, they've been, the people of Azerbaijan are ethnically Turkic and have historically adhered to Shiite Islam. Armenians are Indo-European people, and the vast majority of them are Christians. Okay? So you have this battle going on. Let me just pull this little map up for you. Take a look at this map. Where the heck are these 2 countries? Where's Azerbaijan and Armenia? Well, funny how that is. They're right above Iran and right below Russia. What a strategic place. You can see Ukraine on the map. You can see Iraq and Syria. You can see the Black Sea, the Caspian Sea, and they're right in the middle. I think President Trump is making a strategic move here. Because we're all surprised. What are we even talking to them for? They've been fighting for 35 years. Why step in to try to get a peace deal now? How about because strategically, it'd be real nice to us to have access to their territory. And they've got lots of minerals and energy. Yeah, Trump playing 5D chess. And by the way, Barack Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize, never signed a peace deal. Not one. Yeah, in 6 months, Trump has the Armenian-Azerbaijan peace framework, the Israeli-Iran ceasefire agreement, India-Pakistan ceasefire, Rwanda and Democratic Republic of Congo peace agreement, Cambodia and Thailand border conflict resolution. Oh no, he doesn't deserve the Nobel Peace Prize though. No. That's because lefties are full of crap. Okay? If he ever got offered it, he should turn it down. because it's a piece of crap. Have Obama stick it where the sun don't shine. This is another important thing that we are for. We support this, and it's something we've talked about, a long time ago, okay? But Trump is going to meet with Putin in Alaska next Friday. And we felt all along, until that happens, until Trump meets with Putin and with Zelensky, there ain't going to be no peace deal. He's got to make the deal. The fact that Putin is willing to do this tells me the deal is pretty close. President Donald Trump announced he will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on August 15th as part of an effort to bring the war in Ukraine to a close. The highly anticipated meeting between myself as President of the United States and President Vladimir Putin of Russia will take place next Friday. The confirmation comes hours after Trump announced he would be meeting Putin very shortly. He said earlier in the day that increased military spending by NATO and earlier U.S. sanctions on nations that buy oil from Russia, meaning India, big sanctions on India. Trump is hitting India hard to shut off their purchases of Russian oil. Russia can't afford that. Contributed to Moscow's agreement to the talks. All right? Now, there's talk that this deal is already set, that Trump ain't going there without Zelensky and those guys already agreeing. We'll see. I hope so. We all want peace in Ukraine. We want to stop the killing. We want to work on peace and prosperity. I don't know if this will happen. It's a tough deal, but we got the right man at the table. Thank God. And we'll see what can happen. There's talk about some concession of eastern Ukraine, some land that Putin wants, and I don't know. But if a deal can be struck, I think Donald Trump's the one that can strike it. So we're very happy for that. This is also something we've been talking about for a long time and needs to be done. Trump orders U.S. military action against terrorist drug cartels flooding America with fentanyl. Whoa. I've said all along, and Charlie Kirk had a great segment, I think on Friday, talking about why are we spending hundreds of millions of dollars to help Ukraine fight Russia when we've got drug cartels and China killing 100,000 of our kids and conducting war against us from Mexico and South America. President Donald Trump signed a directive ordering the Pentagon to begin military operations against violent Latin American drug cartels that have been officially designated as foreign terrorist organizations. These cartels are responsible for flooding the United States with deadly drugs like fentanyl, fueling addiction, chaos, and record-setting violence. While past administrations look the other way, President Trump is treating these narco-terrorists like the enemy combatants they are. According to the New York Times, Trump's order lays the groundwork for to direct U.S. military action both at sea and on foreign soil against the dangerous drug cartels that have been flooding America with fentanyl and other deadly narcotics. Military officials are already developing operational plans to take the fight to these terrorists, meaning we're coming at you where you live. The move underscores President Trump's continued resolve to use every tool available to confront a crisis that past administrations treated merely as law enforcement issue. And it's long overdue. I said to you guys when I reported the story that there is a port in Mexico that China runs. There's Chinese people running the port in Mexico where all the ingredients for fentanyl come by ship into Mexico, and then Chinese workers put it together and give it to the drug cartels to traffic into the United States. I said to you 6 months ago, we need to have an ICBM hit that port. I mean that. I think President Trump means that. I think we're going to see drone strikes, right? I think these little labs, these little conclaves that the drug cartels have all over Mexico are going to start disappearing. Poof, 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 poof. The Mexican president was on TV saying, oh no, there's not going to be any U.S. military attacks on our soil. Oh yeah? Yeah, honey, just watch. We're all for it. You should talk to your neighbors about it. You should talk to your family about it. This is a direct threat. This is war on the American people. I have people we know, friends of our family members of our daughter-in-law who were killed by this. We know people in our community who've been killed by the fentanyl. They got to pay a price for that. They haven't, because the communists bought all our elected officials who wanted to destroy America, and this is a good way to do it, to kill your kids. Trump doesn't think that way. We don't think that way. Talk to people about this, because it's going to happen, and when it does, you're going to say, yes, hit him again, harder, harder. That's a chant we used to have in high school. This is another action that Trump's doing that nobody wants to do. Nobody wants to do. They just want to talk. Trump doesn't talk. He does. Trump orders federal law enforcement to patrol Washington, D.C., plagued by violent crime for far too long. Now, many of you picked up on this because one of the Doge guys was beat almost to death by a mob of black teenagers in D.C. when he was trying to save a girl, okay, when they were out at night. And he got beat up pretty bad. You can see the pictures of that. That kind of got Trump's attention. But it's we had a House member's staffer killed. D.C.'s a disaster. Jean Pirro, Judge Janine, who's now head and was confirmed by the Senate to be the DOJ person in D.C., says, we're cleaning this up. President Trump says, this is the nation's capital. It should be the example for New York, LA, Chicago, Dallas, Miami. Instead, it's a piece of crap with graffiti and people on the streets. And Trump wants to clean it up. We're all for it. We're all for it. Because it's our nation's capital. And it's got to stop being an example for the wrong things. And so, again, Congress has the jurisdiction. The federal government runs Washington, D.C. It's about time they started to take their job seriously and quit blaming the people that are elected mayor, the jokes are in the city council, and take control again. So that was great news. This is a story everyone missed. You're probably thinking, why did Tom put this out? Why did he send an email? Okay. Why did he, send a text message? Because, folks, this is what we've been talking about this whole show. Trump gets court to end Carter-era ruling that stopped merit-based hiring for 40 years. For 40 years. You're not going to believe this story. I'm going to read it to you because it's just stupid. And yet, the damage it did to our country is incalculable. Listen to this. A decades-old court order that blocked the federal government from using tests to measure job applicant skills was terminated by a D.C. judge on Friday, setting the stage for an overhaul of the federal workforce that could be one of President Trump's most lasting achievements. In 1981, Angelo Loveno sued the federal government over the Professional Administrative Career Examination, a test that helped identify the best and brightest out of tens of thousands who apply for government jobs each year. Loveno argued that the test kept too many blacks and Hispanics out of government, and in the waning days of President Jimmy Carter's administration, the Office of OPM, the Office of Management, OPM, agreed to pause the test for 5 years. So this 1981, Carter's going out, an agency of the government, OPM, says, we will waive the test for 5 years. 40 years later, the Loveno consent decree was somehow still intact. In January, the Trump administration filed a brief challenging the agreement, a feat which required reopening a decades-closed court case in which the original judge had died. The administration argued that it was doubtful the decree was ever appropriate and that the Supreme Court case law outlawing affirmative action is certainly not now illegal. Angelo Loveno is still alive, and he agreed to terminate the case, the consent decree. Loveno was represented by lawyers from Hispanic and Black civil rights groups who would not comment. For almost half a century, because of this law that never faced scrutiny was just continued. Because why? It allowed you to appoint anybody to a job in the government, not the best. It destroyed merit for 40 years. For almost half a century, the federal government has operated like a college that didn't look at SAT scores while admitting students. Rescinding the Levano consent decree could make the government from safety school status to Ivy League. We are making civil service great again, Office of Personnel Management Director. So that's what OPM says. Office of Personnel Management Director Scott Cooper told the Daily Wire Friday. The move opens the door for technocratic hiring assessments that allow the government to hire applicants who objectively demonstrate the most aptitude, Cooper told the Daily Wire in an interview. That means that the move means America may start getting better service at government agencies, with government being more helpful and responsive. The lasting opportunity here is, can we change the culture of the workforce in the federal government? Can we make it a high-performance culture? That will definitely be the president's legacy if we can make that successful. This story, share it. Go to WeThePeopleConvention.org. It's an amazing story that for 40 years we didn't hire the best because somebody filed a suit that was unlawful and we just kept blindly following it. Wow. Wow. This is how you make America great again. Wow. So then, kind of a similar thing. Trump did an executive order improving oversight of federal grant making. Well, what is this about? Trump, you can see this at whitehouse.gov. Okay, it's whitehouse.gov, and then click on the news section. You can read the whole thing. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, and to approve the process of federal grant making while ending offensive waste of tax dollars, I hereby order that every tax dollar the government spends should improve American lives or advance American interests. Unfortunately, that does not happen. So here's what the long and short of it is. I'm not going to read all this to you. It's real simple. First of all, what the left figured out is that by having their unqualified, it just showed that they didn't have to be qualified government workers who had leftist ideologies and were operating not to serve you. They were not public servants. They were advancing their ideology. They were in charge of awarding grants. They were, every grant that got made, the bureaucrats were doing it, not the elected, the people that the elected president put to head up the agency. And Trump's executive order says, no. The people voted for us. We're going to put our people in charge of the agency, and then only the grants that we think should be given will be given. Whoa. That cuts off the money supply for all the lefty NGOs and anti-American Marxists, anti-Israel, anti-Semites, all the people that want to destroy our country. Now they can't just get their grants. And then the order also goes into the whole grant-making process, that because grants were real technical, it was really hard to get a grant for a deserving cause because you didn't have the lawyers and the money to go through the process. This changes that. Do you see how granular Trump is getting? How granular the people who wrote Project 2025, how granular Russ Vaughn and Stephen Miller have gotten to understand the cancer that destroyed our government, and they're cutting it out. Wow. What another great move. Nobody pays attention. You know who's going to pay attention? The people who are getting those grants and the people who are giving those grants who can't anymore. That's who's going to pay attention. I'm going to close the show with this, but I think this is important. This is a post by Peter Navarro. This is the son of a bitch that put me in leg irons, perp walked my fiance, apparently lied to a grand jury to secure my indictments. Karma's a bitch. This is because of a story that the FBI, Ousts top officials, involved in January 6 prosecutions. The FBI has pushed out at least 3 senior officials involved in cases connected with January 6, telling them to leave by Friday without giving them a specific reason. Former FBI Acting Director Brian Driscoll, Stephen Jensen, Acting Director in charge of the Washington Field Office, and Special Agent Walter Gillibrand are all getting forced out as part of a purge that is expected to include other key officials in the Bureau. Driscoll, who served as acting director before Kash Patel was confirmed earlier this year, revealed his firing in an email to employees. Driscoll had come under fire from Trump allies earlier this year after aggressively pushing back against pressure to oust agents who had handled Capitol's riot cases. He refused to tell Congress who the agents were involved with January 6. He was fired just short of retirement and therefore isn't able to collect a full pension. So sorry. So sad for you. How about all those January 6ers who won't get a pension because they lost their jobs because you illegally prosecuted them? Gillibrand was involved in the contempt of Congress case against White House trade advisor Peter Navarro, who ultimately served 4 months behind bars after he spurred a subpoena from the House Select Committee investigating the riot. For his work on the Navarro matter, Geraldo has been in the crosshairs of Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley from Iowa, who said on the Senate floor in April that the case was the work of a merry band of partisans at the FBI. Jensen, who helmed the White House field office, is also believed to have been involved in the Bureau's investigations of the Capitol riot. We're coming. We're coming for them. We're coming for the criminals, the real criminals. And thank God, because they deserve it. What they did was wrong. What they did was partisan. What they did was to defend the illegal coup, the takeover of the American government against the wishes of the American people. And then they tried to punish the American people for daring to elect Donald Trump president. There's no fate bad enough for these people. Whatever comes their way, you deserve it. I have no mercy for you at all. I'm sorry. That's maybe not a Christian thing to do, but I believe in justice, and I want justice to be served. And that's why you watch this podcast, and that's why you share stories like that. I want to thank you for watching this week. I want you to tell people about this podcast. Again, why? Why? Because then more people will act to protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. This podcast is put on by you. I get story links, I get video links, I get comments, suggestions all week long. You can write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org. info@wethepeopleconvention.org. We read your emails, we reply to them, we appreciate them. This is for you. This podcast is for you. It's not for me, it's for you, to give you the tools and the information you need to protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. I need you to use the tools we provide. And I thank those of you who donate to the We the People Convention so that we can provide these tools to everyone. So that is the end of our podcast for this week. Thank you for being with us. I hope you have a good week. I hope you're a happy warrior. I hope you keep confronting evil wherever you find it. I hope that if you've been ill, that you're getting better. I hope that you are joyful, that you appreciate the things that are being done, because you are living in the most amazing times in American history, bar none, for sure. So we'll be back again next week, God willing. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. May God bless you, and God has already blessed the United States of America. Have a good week. Bye now.
Can you see my intertwined.